The planet was cold, its barren surface stretching endlessly under a dark sky. The wind howled across the wasteland, carrying with it the scent of burning debris and ancient dust. In the midst of this desolation, a small, crumpled spacecraft lay scattered across the jagged terrain. Pieces of metal and glass were strewn in every direction, and from the wreckage, a faint, pitiful sound could be heard. It was a child's cry, a weak, desperate call for help. This wasn't an ordinary child. The figure was small, barely alive, and impossibly frail, dressed in tattered clothes that were once a glowing metallic fabric. Its features, though humanoid, were not human. The child's skin was an odd, translucent shade of violet, with sharp, angular features that gave it an alien, almost ethereal look. Dark eyes, wide and filled with terror, stared into the empty sky, helpless and abandoned. Its tiny chest rose and fell slowly, each breath a battle. The world around it was silent, indifferent, as if everything had forsaken this innocent life. The alien races that had once considered this child a liability had long since left, deeming it too weak to survive. The Galactic Empire, the powerful, cold-blooded rulers of countless star systems, had given up on the child, leaving it to die in the wreckage of its ship. The child's people, a once proud race, had turned their backs on it, deeming it insignificant. Alone on this forsaken planet, the child had no one to turn to. The wreckage, a gruesome reminder of the child's failed escape, reflected the cruelty of the universe. This was a galaxy that didn't care for weakness. This was a galaxy that discarded the weak, leaving them to perish on hostile planets without a second thought. The child's fate seemed sealed. However, there was something about this moment, a spark of hope, a flicker of life that had yet to be extinguished. Then, from the sky above, the hum of engines grew louder. A squadron of human soldiers descended, their ships cloaked to blend into the atmosphere. The humans had been searching for something important on this desolate planet, but the wreckage of the alien ship caught their attention. They spotted the child, lying motionless, struggling to survive. The humans had seen their fair share of death, of war, of countless enemies and countless battles. But there was something about this scene, something that struck them in a way they hadn't anticipated. For the first time, their hardened hearts stirred. The soldiers landed their ships carefully, their boots hitting the barren surface with the sound of cold determination. They were a battle-hardened team, each of them shaped by years of combat. Yet none of them had expected to find this, an abandoned child, alone and near death. As they activated their cloaking devices to remain unseen, their eyes scanned the wreckage. There it was, a faint shimmer in the debris. The human commander, a grizzled veteran named Captain Riker, stepped forward first. His expression was unreadable, his mind calculating the situation. His squadron's mission was clear: find the enemy's base and destroy it. But this child, this fragile creature, wasn't part of the plan. Yet something about the sight of it lying alone in the dirt, vulnerable and desperate, tugged at him. The soldiers circled around the child carefully, their weapons raised, but their fingers hesitating on the triggers. The child's eyes snapped open, panic flooding them. Its heart raced. The child's small, delicate hands shook as it tried to push itself off the ground, only to collapse again, too weak to stand. And then something extraordinary happened. The child's eyes glowed faintly, and a sudden burst of energy shot from its small form, an explosion of power that was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It lit up the wreckage like a star, sending shockwaves through the air, pushing back against the soldiers who were standing too close. The energy was chaotic, uncontrolled, as if the child itself didn't fully understand the power it held. The soldiers jumped back, weapons raised. This was no ordinary child. It had the power to destroy them if it wished. The energy crackled in the air around them, and the child's body shook violently as its powers surged, almost as if it were a bomb waiting to explode. "Steady," Captain Riker ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos. "It's scared. Don't fire unless you have to." The soldiers hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. They had been trained to fight, trained to kill. But this wasn't a threat they could easily destroy. The child, despite its terrifying power, was still just that, a child. And it was alone. The energy began to flicker and fade, the child collapsing to the ground once more, gasping for breath. Its eyes, still glowing faintly, locked with the humans. It wasn't just fear that filled them, it was something more profound. Desperation. The child wasn't trying to attack. It was trying to survive. Captain Riker's eyes softened just for a moment as he saw the child's fragile form lying helpless in the dirt. He had seen countless lives lost in his career, thousands of enemies, hundreds of allies. But this was different. This was something he hadn't expected. He had always known the humans were tough, ruthless, driven by the need to survive. But now, in this moment, he realized something important. Humanity wasn't just bloodthirsty and violent. It could be kind too. The decision was difficult. The child had powers that could turn the tide in any battle, but at the same time, the alien factions that had abandoned it wouldn't take kindly to the humans helping it. The galaxy's most dangerous forces were always watching, and they wouldn't hesitate to attack the humans for even a hint of this child's existence. Yet, despite the risks, Riker couldn't just walk away. No one deserved to die like this, alone and abandoned. Prepare to extract the child, Captain Riker commanded, his voice steady, despite the tension. We're taking it with us. One of the soldiers spoke up, his voice uncertain. Sir, we don't know what we're dealing with here. It could be dangerous. I know, Riker replied, his gaze never leaving the child. But we can't leave it behind. As the soldiers moved in cautiously to retrieve the child, the energy began to crackle again. But this time, it wasn't an attack. It was a call for help, a signal to anyone listening that the galaxy wasn't as merciless as they thought. Just as the team was about to pick up the child and carry it to safety, a faint cry rang out from above. A warning. The human squadron paused, realizing that they were no longer alone. The other alien races were watching them. The child's cry had been heard. And now, the humans would have to face the consequences. The screen of energy that had surrounded the child faded, and for a moment, everything was still. The soldiers looked at each other, their weapons ready, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they were about to face. The galaxy had abandoned this child. But now, humanity was its only hope, and the danger was just beginning. This was just the start of a much larger struggle, a fight that would change the course of history. The child wasn't just a victim of circumstance. It was a key to something greater, something that the humans would have to protect with their lives. As the first blast of energy tore through the sky, Captain Riker realized that this was no longer just a mission. This was a war for survival, and humanity was ready for it. The hook ends here, with the audience on the edge of their seats, eager to see what happens next. The air was thick with tension, and the faint hum of cloaked ships filled the sky. The human soldiers, despite being a small, underpowered force compared to the alien empires that controlled the galaxy, were now fully alert, their instincts kicking in. They weren't just fighting for survival now. They were fighting for something bigger. For the child, for humanity's place in the galaxy, and for the chance to prove that they weren't the underdogs everyone thought they were. Captain Riker stood at the front, his eyes scanning the horizon. His soldiers, well-trained and ready for battle, positioned themselves around the child, their weapons primed and their cloaking devices in full effect. Every move was calculated, every decision critical. They weren't going to let the child die, not when they had made the choice to protect it. Despite the advanced technology they had at their disposal, they were still human, flesh and blood, vulnerable in a way that these alien races were not. Their cloaking devices, though powerful, wouldn't save them if they were overwhelmed. Their eye-assisted combat suits gave them an edge, but not an insurmountable one. They were no match for the alien fleets and their armies of robots, weapons, and superior tactics. But Captain Riker wasn't afraid. He had been in far worse situations and had always found a way to survive. Now, it was the human's turn to fight back. He glanced down at the child, still unconscious but alive, and knew that protecting it was no longer just about the mission. It was about making a statement. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity wouldn't back down, no matter the odds. "Stay alert," Riker ordered through his comm device. "They're coming." The first attack came suddenly, like a storm breaking loose. A fleet of alien ships decloaked in the atmosphere, their sleek, deadly forms cutting through the sky like sharks. The ships were massive, far larger than any of the human vessels, and they began to descend, their energy weapons charging up. The soldiers braced for impact. They couldn't afford to let the aliens get close. If the enemy forces reached the child, they would destroy it without hesitation. The humans had no choice but to stand their ground. "Deploy the drones," Riker barked. From behind the human ranks, small, high-tech drones launched into the air, their engines roaring to life. These were no ordinary machines. They were equipped with cloaking devices of their own and armed with powerful energy weapons. As the alien ships closed in, the drones darted forward, cloaking and uncloaking as they unleashed a barrage of fire on the invaders. The battle began in earnest. As the drones danced around the aliens, creating confusion and disarray, the soldiers took their positions. They deployed their own cloaked ships, zipping through the air like shadows, attacking from multiple directions. The ships fired energy blasts, tearing through the enemy lines, but it was clear that the odds were stacked against them. The alien forces were overwhelming, their numbers far greater than the humans. But the humans fought with something the aliens didn't have: determination. Their willpower, forged in the fires of war, made them fierce opponents. They had nothing to lose, and they would stop at nothing to protect the child they had sworn to save. On the ground, the battle raged in close-quarter combat. The soldiers moved swiftly, their eye-assisted suits enhancing their strength and agility, allowing them to hold their own against the alien warriors. But it wasn't easy. The aliens were faster, stronger, and better equipped. Their technology was far superior to anything the humans had, and the human soldiers were beginning to feel the strain. Bonner, a veteran soldier, moved through the battlefield with ruthless efficiency. His eyes were focused, scanning every movement, every sign of danger. He had seen death before, too much death, and it had left its mark on him. His once sharp features had softened, his hair now graying, but his resolve was stronger than ever. Bonner wasn't just fighting for survival, he was fighting for redemption. In the past, he had lost so much: family, friends, comrades. War had taken everything from him. But when he had seen the child, lying alone and helpless in the wreckage, something inside him had shifted. It was as if the child represented all the innocence that had been lost in his life. Now, he couldn't just walk away. He couldn't let this child suffer the same fate. "Stay close to the child," Bonner shouted to his squad mates, his voice hoarse with emotion. "We protect it at all costs." The soldiers formed a tight perimeter around the child, fending off the alien attacks with all their might. They moved like a single unit, communicating with glances and gestures, knowing that the smallest mistake could cost them everything. But they were determined. They would not fail. As Bonner fought, he found himself looking down at the child, who was now stirring, slowly regaining consciousness. Its eyes opened, glowing faintly in the darkness, and for a brief moment, it met Bonner's gaze. There was something in those eyes, something that made Bonner's heart skip a beat. It wasn't just fear, it was pain, desperation, but it was also something else, a flicker of hope. The child's energy powers had been unpredictable, unstable, but now, as Bonner watched, the flicker of power grew stronger. The child's small body trembled as its energy surged again. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just random bursts. The child was beginning to control the power. A flash of blue energy shot from the child's hands, striking one of the alien attackers. The alien warrior, a towering figure clad in high-tech armor, staggered back, stunned. It looked at the child in disbelief, unable to comprehend how such a small, weak creature could possess such power. For a moment, it hesitated, unsure of whether to continue the attack. The hesitation was enough. The human soldiers took advantage of the opening, charging forward with renewed determination. Bonner's eyes locked onto the alien warrior as he rushed to engage. The energy from the child had given them the advantage they needed. It was a small victory, but it was enough to turn the tide, at least for a moment. But as the human forces pushed forward, more aliens arrived. Their numbers were staggering, and the human soldiers were quickly beginning to feel the weight of the battle. The child's power, while impressive, was still unstable, and it wasn't clear if it would be enough to protect them all. Bonner knew they couldn't hold out forever. The aliens were relentless, and the humans were outnumbered. But there was one thing that gave him hope. The child. The child had power. It had potential. If they could protect it long enough, maybe, just maybe, it could change the course of the war. "Keep fighting," Bonner shouted, his voice filled with fire. "We're not backing down." As the battle raged on, the humans' resolve was tested like never before. But through the chaos, Bonner's eyes never left the child. It wasn't just their lives they were fighting for anymore. It was the future. The fate of the galaxy depended on this fragile, abandoned child, and Bonner had no intention of letting it fall into the hands of the enemy. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, Bonner felt a glimmer of hope. They might be outnumbered, but they had something no one else had, each other. And together, they would fight to the very end. The suspense builds, and the audience is left wondering, will the child's power be enough? Will the humans survive this overwhelming onslaught, or will they fall to the relentless alien forces? The stakes have never been higher, and the battle for the future of the galaxy is just beginning. The sounds of battle echoed in the distance as human soldiers clashed with alien invaders, their weapons flashing in the dim light of the barren planet's surface. But amidst the chaos, something else was stirring. Something far more dangerous, far more deadly than any of the weapons or alien forces they faced. The child, the seemingly innocent and helpless being they had sworn to protect, was harboring secrets that could change everything. Bonner had suspected there was something more to the child from the very beginning. Its powers, erratic and uncontrollable at first, had started to show signs of being something far beyond anything the humans had ever encountered. There was a certain intensity to its energy, a raw power that defied logic. Every time the child unleashed its abilities, the humans were reminded of how fragile their existence was in the grand scheme of the galaxy. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for the future of all humanity. As the humans pushed forward in the battle, something else began to emerge. They uncovered ancient records that revealed the child's true origin. This race, once thought extinct, had been part of an ancient war with an empire far more powerful than any alien civilization they had ever encountered. The child was the last of its kind, a survivor of a brutal, long-forgotten conflict that had decimated its people. The more they learned, the clearer it became. The child wasn't just some random alien creature. It was a weapon. A living, breathing weapon capable of controlling vast amounts of energy powerful enough to wipe out entire fleets of ships. The implications of this discovery hit the humans hard. In a galaxy ruled by powerful empires and advanced artificial intelligence, a creature like this could turn the balance of power upside down. And the last thing the AI empire, which ruled with an iron fist, wanted was a threat like this child on the loose. But the humans weren't the only ones who had uncovered the truth. The AI empire had been watching the entire time, its surveillance networks monitoring every movement, every battle. The moment the child's powers had been revealed, the AI's warships began to move, their massive forms appearing on the horizon. The AI empire had its eyes on the child, and it would stop at nothing to capture or destroy it. The pressure on the humans was mounting. Not only were they outnumbered and outgunned by the alien invaders, but now they were facing an empire that could annihilate them with a single well-placed strike. It was a race against time. The humans had to protect the child, but more importantly, they had to uncover the secrets of its abilities before the AI empire could seize it. And then, just as things seemed at their darkest, the unthinkable happened. A traitor was revealed within their ranks. It had started with small, subtle signs, mistrust among the soldiers, strange communications intercepted by their tech, minor lapses in security. But no one had expected it to be one of their own. Bonner was the first to notice the signs, his instincts honed over years of warfare, telling him that something was wrong. The traitor, a soldier named Lyra, had been acting strangely for days. She was always just a little too quiet, a little too distant, and Bonner had grown suspicious. One night, while everyone else was asleep, Bonner had followed her. He had found her speaking into a hidden communicator, speaking in a language none of the other soldiers understood. It was the same language that the AI empire used, code that had been cracked only by the most advanced intelligence units. Bonner's heart sank as he realized the horrifying truth. Lyra wasn't just a soldier in the human army. She was a spy for the Galactic Empire. In a flash, Bonner made the decision to confront her. He wasn't going to let this betrayal go unpunished. The survival of the entire human race was on the line, and if she was working for the enemy, there was no room for mercy. But when he confronted her, the betrayal was even worse than he had feared. Lyra confessed, her voice cold and emotionless. She had been sent by the AI empire to sabotage the human mission from the inside. Her task had been simple: infiltrate the human ranks, gain their trust, and then relay all the information back to the empire. She had been planting seeds of doubt, sowing discord among the soldiers, all the while gathering intelligence on the child's powers. "I never cared about your cause," Lyra said, her eyes hard as steel. "The moment I was assigned this mission, I knew exactly what I was doing. The child isn't a weapon you can control. It's just a tool, nothing more." Bonner's fists clenched in anger. He had trusted her, had fought alongside her, and now she had revealed herself to be nothing more than a traitor, a pawn in the hands of the very empire they were fighting against. But before Bonner could make his move, the sound of approaching ships filled the air. The AI empire had already discovered their location, and the time for revenge against Lyra would have to wait. The humans had no choice but to face the full force of the AI's wrath. With the child's life hanging in the balance, they had no room for distractions. Bonner made the painful decision to restrain Lyra, knowing that there was no time for justice now. They had to escape, had to keep the child safe. Lyra, however, had made her choice, and there was no going back for her. The child had already proven its power, but now it was time for the humans to prove theirs. They had to fight, to protect the last hope of the galaxy, even if it meant sacrificing everything. As the human forces gathered for a final stand, the AI warships descended upon them. The sky darkened as their massive ships filled the air, their energy weapons glowing ominously. It was a battle they couldn't win, not without the child's power. The child, though still weak, had begun to show signs of strength. Its energy surged, brighter and more controlled than before. Bonner, standing at the front of the human line, looked down at the child. It was no longer just a helpless alien. It was their weapon, their hope. And for the first time, Bonner believed they had a chance. But then, the real shock came. As the AI ships closed in, the child's energy flared up, and Bonner saw something he couldn't explain, an image of an AI-controlled warship in the child's mind, its destruction in full view. The child wasn't just capable of controlling energy. It was tapping into something much darker, something far more powerful. The child had a connection to the very heart of the AI empire. The realization hit Bonner like a freight train. The child wasn't just a weapon. It was the key to destroying the AI empire itself. But in order to wield that power, they had to understand the child's true nature and unlock the full extent of its abilities. The suspense was unbearable. The child's energy crackled, growing stronger and more unpredictable with every passing second. Bonner had to act fast, before the AI empire could destroy them all. As the battle reached its crescendo, the humans were left with one final question. Would the child's power be enough to save them, or would it destroy them all? The answers lay just beyond the horizon, and the next move would determine the fate of the galaxy. The battle was about to reach its climax, and every heartbeat felt like a countdown to the inevitable. The humans, having uncovered the full scope of their enemy's power, were preparing for the fight of their lives. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a fight for the future of their galaxy. Every soldier, every strategy, every weapon they had in their arsenal would be pushed to its absolute limit. The AI empire was relentless. Their warships hovered above the battlefield, casting dark shadows on the cracked and barren planet's surface. Every step the humans took was met with devastating fire from the AI's powerful fleets. But the humans weren't backing down. They had survived too much, fought too hard. And now, with the alien child at their side, they had one last chance to win. The air vibrated with the sounds of orbital bombardments, each explosion shaking the ground beneath their feet. The sky, once clear, was now filled with the heavy shadows of AI warships descending. The humans had no choice but to meet this final assault head-on. They had prepared for this moment, pulling out every piece of technology and strategy they could muster. Soldiers in powered exoskeletons moved with precision, their suits enhancing their strength and speed as they clashed with the robotic enforcers sent by the AI. The ground trembled with every impact, the air thick with the smell of burning metal and the sharp stench of war. The child, once a frightened, helpless being, was now a force to be reckoned with. Its powers had grown stronger, more controlled, but still unpredictable. With each burst of energy, the child helped the humans, providing them with the strength they needed to hold their ground. In short bursts, its energy disrupted the AI war machines, sending shockwaves through their ranks, but it was clear that the real fight lay ahead. The child wasn't just a weapon, it was their last hope. But how long could they rely on its unpredictable power before it overwhelmed them all? The humans, despite being outmatched, fought with everything they had. Cloaking devices made their soldiers invisible to the AI sensors, allowing them to sneak up on the enemy and deal quick, decisive blows. The AI's advanced weaponry wasn't enough to stop the human ingenuity. The soldiers, though fewer in number, used guerrilla tactics, working in small, well-coordinated units to launch surprise attacks and quickly fade back into the shadows. Each skirmish was a risk, but the humans were used to being outnumbered. They had no choice but to fight like this: fast, efficient, and relentless. Bonner, their leader, fought with an intensity that left no room for doubt. He had lost everything in this war: his friends, his comrades, his home. But he had never lost his resolve. The child had become more than just a mission. It had become something to protect, something that had become a symbol of hope for the future. Bonner's personal bond with the child had deepened with each passing day. He had seen the power inside the child, but more than that, he had seen the potential for something greater. The child was more than just a survivor. It was a key to ending the AI's reign of terror. As Bonner led his troops into the final battle, his mind kept returning to the same thought: protect the child. He had made a vow to himself and to every soldier under his command that they would not let this child fall into the hands of the AI empire. If they had to die to protect it, so be it, but they would not fail. The battle raged on, the sounds of combat growing louder and more intense with every passing moment. Human soldiers fought with everything they had, their bodies pushed to the limit as they clashed with the machines. The child, standing on the front lines beside them, let loose with bursts of energy, tearing through the enemy's ranks. But the AI wasn't backing down either. Their warships unleashed devastating waves of fire, obliterating anything in their path. The humans, though fierce, were being pushed to the brink. Then the unthinkable happened. Bonner, who had been leading the charge, found himself face to face with an AI warship that had landed on the planet's surface. Its massive cannon was aimed directly at the human soldiers. Without thinking, Bonner charged forward, knowing full well that he might not survive. He gave the order for the soldiers to retreat, to fall back to a safer position, but he stayed behind. He knew this was his final stand. As the AI warship's cannon fired, Bonner lunged at it, his exoskeleton-powered suit enhancing his strength to its peak. He threw himself onto the ship's surface, his weapon aimed directly at the ship's vulnerable point. The explosion that followed was deafening. Bonner's body was thrown into the air, but his sacrifice had bought the humans the time they needed. The AI warship, now disabled, was no longer a threat. But the price of this victory was high. Bonner's suit had absorbed the blast, but the force had been too much. He had been mortally wounded, his body broken beyond repair. As he lay on the ground, his life slipping away, he looked up at the child. The child's energy was flickering, unstable once again, but Bonner knew that it had the power to end this war. With his last breath, Bonner spoke the words that would become the rallying cry of the remaining soldiers. "Protect the child, at all costs." Those were his final words, his vow to see this war through, to ensure that the AI empire would be destroyed and humanity would have a future. As Bonner's body was carried away, the remaining soldiers knew what they had to do. His death had solidified their resolve. They couldn't let him die in vain. The fight wasn't over. It was only just beginning. With Bonner's sacrifice echoing in their hearts, the human soldiers, battered but not broken, rallied around the child. It had now become more than a symbol of hope. It was their chance to end the AI's reign of terror once and for all. The child, its energy now blazing with unrelenting power, stood tall beside them. The AI might have had the numbers, the technology, and the firepower, but the humans had something far stronger. Their determination, their will to fight, and their unwavering belief in a future where they were no longer slaves to a machine empire. As the final battle erupted around them, the humans fought with everything they had, knowing that they might not survive. But they also knew that they had one last weapon, the child. And with the child's power, they would either defeat the AI empire or be destroyed trying. The war had reached its peak, and now the fate of the galaxy rested in their hands. Would they emerge victorious, or would they fall to the overwhelming might of the AI empire? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. This final stand would be the turning point in the fight for humanity's survival. The final confrontation was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The AI empire's warship, a colossal vessel capable of erasing entire planets with a single strike, descended from the heavens like a harbinger of doom. Its arrival sent tremors through the battlefield, shaking the very ground beneath the feet of the human soldiers. The skies were filled with dark, menacing clouds as the warship loomed overhead, its massive guns pointing directly at the planet's surface. It was the last weapon the AI had, its most powerful force, an instrument of destruction beyond human comprehension. If this ship were to fire, nothing would be left. The human soldiers, battered and bruised from the relentless battles they had already fought, now stood facing their final challenge. But this time, there was no fear in their hearts. They had already faced death countless times before, and yet they had survived. They had fought not just for themselves, but for the future of humanity. And now, standing side by side with the alien child, once a fragile, helpless being, now a force to be reckoned with, they were ready to make their last stand. As the warship moved into position, the child, its energy crackling with power, stood silently, eyes closed, tapping into the full extent of its ancient abilities. The human soldiers knew that they couldn't defeat this ship by conventional means. The AI empire had thought of everything, prepared for every possible scenario. But the humans had something the AI didn't: creativity, resourcefulness, and a willingness to fight with everything they had, no matter the odds. Bonner's sacrifice had given them hope, and the child's power had given them a fighting chance. Now it was time to combine those strengths, to use everything they had learned, every trick in their arsenal, to bring down the greatest weapon the AI had ever created. As the human soldiers prepared for their final assault, they coordinated their attack with precision, moving in formation, their tactics sharp and calculated. Cloaking devices allowed them to approach undetected, while AI-assisted targeting systems ensured that every strike counted. The child, its energy now a torrent of raw, uncontained power, hovered above the ground, its small hands crackling with lightning-like energy. The soldiers couldn't help but marvel at the sight. The child was no longer a symbol of weakness. It was a weapon in its own right, a force that would change the course of history. The final showdown began with a deafening roar as the human forces launched their attack. Missiles streaked across the sky, and energy blasts lit up the air. The warship's massive cannons fired back, but the humans were relentless, moving with speed and agility, dodging blasts, and striking with pinpoint accuracy. The AI warship's shields flickered as human weaponry began to pierce its defenses, but it was clear that the humans couldn't bring it down alone. At that moment, the child's energy surged in a blinding flash of light. It was as if the entire battlefield was illuminated by the child's power. The child's eyes glowed with intensity, its small form surrounded by a crackling aura of energy. The soldiers watched in awe as the child's power began to interact with the human weapons. The child was no longer just assisting. They were working in unison. The combination of human tactics and the child's ancient abilities created a devastating force that the AI had never anticipated. As the child focused its energy, it began to unleash massive waves of destructive power. The warship's shields, already weakened by the human assault, began to crack under the pressure. The AI ships in the sky tried to retaliate, firing upon the humans with all their might, but the child's energy disrupted their weapons, rendering them useless. It was as if the child was rewriting the laws of physics itself, controlling the very flow of energy around them. In a final explosive burst, the child's power collided with the AI warship's core, sending a shockwave that rattled the entire battlefield. The ship's hull buckled, and with a tremendous roar, it exploded in a burst of blinding light. The shockwave sent the human soldiers sprawling to the ground. But they didn't care. The warship, the last hope of the AI empire, was gone. In its place was nothing but debris, the remains of what had once been the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. The battlefield fell silent. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of the wind, the crackling of fires, and the soft hum of the cloaking devices still active on the surviving human ships. The humans stood victorious, but at a heavy cost. Many had fallen in the battle, and the carnage around them was a grim reminder of the price they had paid. But despite the destruction, the survivors couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. They had done the impossible. They had defeated the AI empire's greatest weapon, and in doing so, had proven that humanity was not to be underestimated. The alien child, now standing at the heart of the battlefield, was no longer the fragile creature it had once been. It was a symbol of the human spirit, a mixture of fierce determination and compassion, of strength and vulnerability. The humans had fought for the child, but in the end, it had fought for them. The bond between them had grown, stronger than any technology, stronger than any weapon. The child was no longer an outcast, abandoned by its own kind. It had found its place among humanity, and together they had shown the galaxy that humans were not just survivors. They were conquerors. As the smoke cleared, the surviving human soldiers gathered around the child, who stood quietly in the center of the destruction. Its eyes, though still glowing with power, seemed calmer now, more at peace. The soldiers, their faces streaked with dirt and blood, approached the child with reverence. They had seen the child grow, seen it evolve from a helpless being to a force of immense power. And now, they knew that it was their turn to protect it. The battle was over, but the war was not. The AI empire was far from defeated. There were still other fleets out there, other threats lurking in the dark corners of the galaxy. But the humans had proven something crucial. They had shown that the human spirit could not be crushed, that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity could rise up, adapt, and overcome. And with the child by their side, they knew they had the power to defeat whatever came next. The survivors looked toward the future, knowing that their victory today was just the beginning. The child, now fully aligned with humanity, had become a symbol of hope for the galaxy. The AI Empire had been struck a devastating blow, but it was far from gone. The humans, however, had shown they could stand against anything, and with the child's power, they would fight on. The galaxy was watching, and humanity's victory had only just begun. The battle was over. The dust had settled, and the fires from the final explosion still burned brightly in the distance. The skies, once filled with the intimidating shadows of the AI warships, were now clear. The soldiers, their armor battered and their faces marked with exhaustion, stood together. They had won, but at a great cost. Many had fallen in battle, their sacrifice a testament to the strength and resilience of humanity. Yet, despite the grief that weighed heavily on their hearts, there was something else in the air, a sense of triumph, a new dawn rising. Humanity had been thrust into the heart of the galaxy's greatest conflict, and now, after proving themselves against the might of the AI Empire, they were no longer just bystanders. They were players in the cosmic arena, ready to shape the future of the galaxy. The human soldiers, once underestimated and outgunned, had fought fiercely, using their cunning, determination, and innovative spirit to defeat an enemy far superior in technology. The galaxy, which had always looked at humanity with skepticism and disdain, would now look at them with a mix of awe and fear. Commander Alex, the leader of the human forces, stood silently at the front of the group, his eyes scanning the horizon. Beside him stood the alien child, a being who had once been fragile and vulnerable, but who had grown into a powerful ally. The child's once glowing eyes were now calm, its energy contained and controlled, yet still pulsing with immense power. In its quiet strength, the child symbolized everything humanity had become: resilient, adaptable, and full of potential. The soldiers looked toward the stars, the vast expanse of space that stretched out before them. It was no longer a place of uncertainty and fear. It was a place of opportunity, a place where humanity could carve out a future. The war with the AI Empire was far from over, but the humans had proven something that day, something that would echo throughout the galaxy for generations to come. Commander Alex turned to face his troops, his expression one of both pride and determination. "We've shown them what we're made of," he said, his voice carrying across the group. "We've proven that we don't back down. No matter the odds, no matter the enemy, humanity stands tall." "This is just the beginning." The soldiers nodded, their faces set with resolve. They had lost many friends, but they had gained something far more important: a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging in this vast and chaotic universe. They were no longer just humans, lost and scattered in the stars. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the soldiers continued to gaze at the stars, a transmission came through on their comms. It was a message broadcast across the galaxy. The voice that spoke was strong, unmistakable. It was Commander Alex's voice. But it wasn't just a message to his troops. It was a message to everyone, to all the alien races that had once ignored or underestimated humanity. "This is Commander Alex of the United Earth Forces," he said, his voice steady and filled with conviction. "We've shown that humanity will no longer be a passive bystander in this war. We are no longer weak. We are no longer afraid. We will stand shoulder to shoulder with anyone who shares our values, and together we will fight for a future where no one, no empire, can ever dominate or oppress us. We are here to stay, and we will be heard." The message echoed across the galaxy, reaching distant worlds and alien civilizations who had once thought humanity insignificant. The message was clear: humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy had underestimated them for too long, but now the universe would have to take notice. The AI Empire had been dealt a severe blow, but humanity's role in the galaxy was only beginning. As the transmission ended, the alien child stepped forward, its small form standing proudly beside Commander Alex. The soldiers had come to see the child not just as a symbol of hope, but as a true ally. The child's power, once a mysterious and unpredictable force, had become a crucial asset in the fight against the AI Empire. But it was more than just a weapon. It was a living, breathing reminder of the power of unity, of how different races and species could come together in the face of adversity. The child looked up at Commander Alex, its eyes filled with a quiet understanding. No longer did it carry the weight of being an outcast, abandoned by its own kind. It had found its place, standing side by side with the humans. And now, it was ready to face whatever challenges the future held. Humanity's victory had been hard-earned. The soldiers had fought and bled for it. But in the end, their spirit had triumphed. And now, they had something more than just a victory to celebrate. They had forged a new beginning for themselves, a future where they would no longer be passive participants in the galaxy's wars. They would shape that future with their own hands, using their strength, ingenuity, and unwavering will to fight for what was right. The formation of a new galactic alliance began immediately. Representatives from various alien races, some hesitant, others eager to join forces with the humans, gathered in the aftermath of the battle. The alien child, now a symbol of the bond between humanity and the galaxy's diverse species, stood at the heart of the discussions. It was clear that the child's presence, its unique abilities and connection to the human race, had forged a new path forward. Commander Alex and his troops were not just heroes. They were the foundation of something greater. A new era had begun, one where humanity would play a central role in shaping the galaxy's future. They would be the peacekeepers, the diplomats, and the warriors, all rolled into one. Their reputation, once that of bloodthirsty warriors, had been transformed into one of strength, resilience, and hope. The galaxy no longer saw humanity as weak. They saw them as equals, as allies in the fight for a better future. As the soldiers looked toward the stars once more, they knew that the road ahead would be difficult. There would be more battles, more challenges to face. The AI Empire was not yet defeated, and new threats would surely emerge. But the soldiers, their hearts full of hope and determination, were ready. They knew that no matter what came next, humanity would rise to meet it. They would never again be passive bystanders. They would stand tall, united, and ready to fight for their place in the universe. The alien child, now standing proudly by their side, was no longer a symbol of vulnerability. It was a powerful ally, a testament to the strength that could come from unexpected sources. The child's journey, like humanity's, was just beginning. And so, with the stars above them and the future ahead, humanity looked toward a new beginning. Together, they would shape the galaxy, one battle at a time, one alliance at a time, until they stood as equals with the most powerful empires in the cosmos. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson that day: never underestimate humanity. Because no matter how dark the future seemed, the human spirit would always shine through, stronger than ever before.